electoral system was set up. Then, for me it was very historic because as a member of parliament, I'm reading this document. It's an interim report, and it showcased the 10 recommendations that must be implemented before the next general elections, including, and people have heard indelible ink, fine, people have heard about abolishing postal votes, but Project IC, which was basically what happened in Sabah, where tens of thousands of illegal immigrants were given identification cards in exchange for loyalty for their vote for the ruling party. But it's not what I'm trying to say, or even opposition leaders, or even NGO leaders. This was a document. This was a finding. This was a recommendation in the Parliamentary Select Committee's 10 steps before the next GE. So for me, those things, are still some things to be celebrated. And of course, we have not been completely satisfied with the progress of reforms. Namely, when Human Rights Watch came up with their recommendations, they stated that we have a long way to go before we actually fulfill expectations of implementing political and economic reforms. It's very much needed in Malaysia. But what's more important is the fact that before the next general elections, we would need, and I'm asking a lot of Malaysians, as well as friends of Malaysia, to focus on the fact that we want to implement these reforms. We want to support the Prime Minister of the day, because for me, yes, it is important to win as a politician, but you must lose or win in a system honorably. It is important that it's conducted in a free and fair manner, and now that there's already validation that the system is rigged, there's fraudulent practices, there's problems with it, we just want all these problems to be solved. And it is such an opportune time for Malaysia. I mean, for me, when you hear the first speech in Parliament, as Parliament opened, we are supposed to be the loyal opposition, loyal to the King, loyal to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So as long as we understand a democracy is a platform where different voices, no matter how diverse or different it is from the mainstream, should be allowed to be heard, as long as we are guided by certain principles. And I would like to open for Q&A. I think that I've said and mentioned the fundamentals, and of course, if I leave out anything, if you'd like to ask me on anything, inshallah, please bring it up. I'll do my best. And again, thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much to Mr. Granger again for the short notice, giving us this space, and I hope to see all of you again back in Malaysia. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Nurul, for that. So we'll take questions from the floor, 3 at a time. We have questions. Yes, over there.
Intrinsic within the concept of freedom of religion is the ability to change one's beliefs or religion. Yet in Malaysia, those who seek formal recognition that they are no longer Muslim are harassed and even detained. Often these people do not seek trouble or controversy, but are merely trying to peacefully lead their lives. Nina Joy, for example, was practicing Christian for 15 years before she sought a change of the stated faith on her identity card, so that she could marry her long-term partner. Also, the 4 Ayat Pin followers, who declared they were no longer Muslim, only did so after many years of persecution by the religious authorities. There is now talk of an anti-apostasy bill in Malaysia, even though the right of religious freedom is enshrined both in our federal constitution and the Quran. How can we claim to respect human rights if we do not respect the most fundamental and personal liberties, the freedom for each of us to choose what we believe or not believe? In your view, should a Muslim who seeks to leave the faith of Islam be allowed to do so without fear of harassment and imprisonment? Should it not be a straightforward, unencumbered administrative task, similar to what Nina Joy was seeking? Thank you.
Okay. Are there any more questions at this stage? Yeah.
Just a request. Could people who are questioning just kind of introduce themselves?
Yes.
That would be
Yeah,
really nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the gentleman asked if people who are asking questions could introduce themselves.
I'm not a gentleman.
Okay. Maybe you are.
It's a joke.
Yes, please.
My name is Brian Moraes. I represent Friends of Pakatan Rakyat in the UK. My question, firstly, I'd like to thank YB Nurul for taking her precious time and effort to come and address us here. Thank you very much. I would also, I'm really happy that Dr. Sri Anwar has been released. I think that has been something that we all been yearning for, and we are totally behind you and your family for supporting it. But my question is very simple. There's a lot of speculation on when the election date will be. Would you sort of have an indication of what is the thinking in Pakatan as to the date? Because there's a talk that it could be as quick as March, and some people say it's May. Could you enlighten us? Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Gregory Yin. I've been to this talk before, some of you but my question is, well, not a long one. Nurul Izzah, you represent really the hopes and aspirations of young Malaysians especially. And we all see you as the future leader of Malaysia. Now, can you tell us two things? First of all, what's your vision for Malaysia? And secondly, there seems to be an ongoing problem in Malaysia where, with all due respect, no offense in any sense, but the Malays seem to be sort of frightened of, the Chinese and Indians, sort of taking away their rights. And when your father talks about, abolishing the new economic policy or the new whatever policy it is now, giving favors to the Malays, you get a few people, in your community or in the Malay community sort of shifting to it strongly. Your father has been able now to talk about it, but I've been, sort of following news on the internet, and you haven't really come up with any sort of strong statements of yourself, for yourself. Can you tell us, your views about this very difficult and very sensitive issue? Thank you.
So there's 3 questions. Thank you very much. Mr. Kendra, I'll proceed.
Yep.
The first one on freedom of religion. I would state in Pakatan Rakyat, all the parties will continue to reaffirm and defend whatever has been stipulated in the federal constitution, i.e. including Article 121. No amendments will be made when we are given the chance to rule, inshallah, by the people, if indeed that was the decision made. But what's important here is we do understand there are many cases where there's overlap between the Sharia as well as civil courts. And we have agreed in our common policy framework and Orange Book pronouncements that a special commission be implemented to study the different problems, including the overlaps. Because I think you have to be mindful that there are problems, but not only affecting personalities like Lina Joy, but there's a huge degree of conformity demanded by the government. For example, Shiites are not tolerated, including people from the Hanafi sect, and I think these are, even a lot of people have been labeled as Wahhabis, Salafis. So it is a problem, because I think the more you are allowed to extend a level of conformity, people who fit the BN mold, similar to BN sanctioned rights, which sometimes contradict the rights as enshrined in the federal constitution. So certainly these are issues, but I don't want us to forget. I have a very close scholar, Islamic scholar named Abdullah Yassin, who holds the permit to propagate by the Saudi government, but was charged 2 years ago by the Islamic authorities in Malaysia for preaching without a permit, Malaysian permit. So certainly we have